Toronto Maple Leafs have made more shocking moves as we are now just 3 days away from opening night. We have some shocking updates as it pertains to Easton Cowan and more moves the Leafs have made as things have taken quite an interesting turn. We're going to break down these new moves, discuss what it means going forward, as well as some comments from Nick Robertson on his role with the team that you're going to want to stay tuned till the end for. A ton to go over today, but before we get into it all, if you're a part of the 71% who aren't subscribed to the channel, this is the place to be for daily Leafs content. And with the season just around the corner, if you want to stay up to date with the latest Leafs news, make sure to hit that subscribe button and join the 28% that is subscribed. We'll be having live streams after every game, so almost daily, a few times a week there, so make sure to stay tuned for that. We didn't miss a game last year, missed one or two, so make sure to be excited for those. Now, Darius, ton to go over today. There is a lot of news that came out, and we had a video yesterday, the day before, about moves that are happening, and this is the most fluid this lineup has been in 2 years, in years here, really, with the way things are going down to the wire because of injuries to Scott Laughton, and it really seems that Laughton injury had a pretty big ripple effect on things. We can see here an hour or so ago, but we also have some updates from minutes ago. The Leafs lines include Nyes, Matthews, Michelli, McMahon, Tavares, Nylander, Joshua Domi, Robertson, Lorentz, Nicola, Calle Yarncroke, with Cowan on the outside looking in. And of course, the blue line remains the same, meaning that Benoit is in and Myers going to be the extra. So, Darius, a ton to go over here. One, obviously, the elephant in the room is that Easton Cowan is on the outside looking in, but there's also Michelli on the first line 3 days before, the opening night against the Montreal Canadiens. What are your thoughts on this? And we'll dive into some comments from Berube on Easton Cowan here, but a lot of more, surprising moves. And for the first time, we've seen Yarncroke get solidified here in the bottom six.
Yeah, and I think with Michelli being on the top line, we saw that it worked. There was some chemistry there for the one game that we saw, and I think this has more to do with Domi having to slot in as third line center than anything else. I think if it was up to Berube in a perfect world and Laughton was healthy, then Domi would start on the first line. But it's going to be interesting to see how that line plays. I think the first two lines are going into the season the way they are, but where things get very interesting is the bottom six now, where Robertson has all of a sudden found himself back in the lineup. You have Domi as a center, which I absolutely hate. I think he's just so much better as a wing, especially on this team with the players that they have. And then Waz now fourth line center, Yarncroke all of a sudden is back in the fold. And again, it's just practice, but we are a day away from the regular season. So yes, I am going to look into everything at this point and how this plays into, what the lineup might look like. But pretty interesting stuff there. And then obviously you have Lorentz on the other side, and now Cowan's an extra for all the praise that he's gotten all preseason from the coach. Of course, the defense hasn't changed. One thing I think is also interesting is Pizzetta. A couple of guys are still skating that were sent through waivers with the team, but they're not on the roster. So that, I don't know, that'll be pretty interesting. We'll see how that plays out and who gets called back up. They might have to do some cap shenanigans with some LTIR relief as well. So we'll see what ultimately comes down tomorrow. But Cowan's now an extra. That's an interesting thing, but they haven't made a decision on him yet, a final decision, whether he goes to the Marlies or he's staying with the team. But now he's not practicing on a regular line. I think that's interesting today. So it's going to be interesting to see what they end up doing with him. But him being an extra just the day before the season opens is certainly different.
Yeah, you can see here, I guess I said 3 days. I guess it's today, tomorrow, and then the Leafs play, but of course the regular season opens tomorrow. So depending which way you want to look at that. Berube on Cowan, shout out to Terry Koshin for this. Just keep working, keep practicing. He has had a good camp. No decisions have been made. That's where we're at. We liked him in camp, so he's here right now, which is wild. Now, again, it makes sense. There is still a chance here that, let's say tomorrow or the next day, probably the next day, when we actually get the solidified lines, that Easton Cowan factors back in. But you have to assume right now, no decisions have been made. Now, if this is the lineup that opens the regular season, I don't know how you keep Cowan on the team if he's not going to open against the Montreal Canadiens. That would just be detrimental to his development. A few different ways you can think about this. Now, I don't know if you can convince yourself that they're just going to try some other things. Obviously, rest isn't a factor at this point, even though he's played more recently than a lot of these guys. Maybe they just want to test, see how Domi looks in that third line, and then, of course, they bring it back. But the top six is probably the top six right now. I don't think there's any reason to put Michelli on that line next to Matthews unless they were actually running it come Wednesday. Tavares, that second line's been the same. I actually really like McMahon on that second line. The bottom six becomes interesting with, Waugh. He's been playing that third line for a while. Robertson is in here now, which we hadn't seen. And this is what leads me to believe that this might not actually be the opening day line, if you want to call it that, is because Robertson is there as well. And I don't know if they would throw this much of a wrench into things. Maybe they are, and things are a little bit crazy. But again, they had a full practice this morning, skating with what looks like their potential opening night lineup. So things are trending that way. But I don't know. I have a weird feeling they might not. It just seems very weird to just randomly throw this together. And it's not like this is a crazy change, but it is considering what we've seen. I mean, they've changed it so many times now. And with Easton Cowan being the odd man out, what does that mean? Probably send him down to the Marlies. Calle Jarnkrok getting in. Now, Nick Robertson has had a really good preseason. Maybe they're going to reward him with a chance to start the season with the team in the opening night lineup. David Kemp, Michael Pezzetta, both out. Michael Pezzetta, that makes a lot of sense. He's never going to play a ton of games. But it seems like David Kemp now might just be down to the Marlies or not a part of this team as well. But a lot of this depends on what happens with Easton Cowan. And again, no firm decision on Cowan sitting the opener despite the lines today. You would have to assume if they had these lines set, they would probably just tell us, right? I don't know what they have to hide at this point. So if they haven't made the decision yet, maybe that is the case. And I think that when you look at this, it would be Jarnkrok for Cowan. I think would make the easiest swap there. And fun fact, I like that fourth line a lot more with Lorentz, Nicolas Watt, and Cowan. I think that makes a lot of sense, actually, especially with a veteran like Nicolas Watt who can actually help Cowan maybe develop. But a ton of moving pieces here. Almost too many to keep track of with the way things have went.
And it's also a shame if you look at the lines that they were the way they are, that, if you look back to last week, that third line that had Nicolas Waugh in the middle with Joshua, and then on the right side, Michelli, they were really good. They were generating chances. It's probably Leafs' best looking line through the preseason. So it's kind of a shame in that way. But, you brought up a couple interesting points too. Cowan staying on the team and being an extra makes no sense. Get him into games. Send him to the Marlies then, right? I think the Leafs and Brad Treliving, they're trying to figure things out still. I would put a lot of stock into who's actually in the lineup today and those lines, because we're a day away from the regular season at this point. Like they're wanting to run things and see how certain guys look with other guys, right? So I would put stock into that. Robertson being there is very interesting. So the goaltending situation, also interesting. He spoke out on Reimer. We'll get to that in a little bit too, but he spoke out on Reimer saying that, he's barely had time. So it could be Hildeby, but in a perfect world, it would be Reimer being the backup. So it looks like Hildeby is headed to be the backup goaltender as well. But again, I think a lot of this is just interesting with Cowan. We're going to get a final decision, I think, tomorrow or later today, because obviously teams have to set their lineups before the season starts. So we'll get an idea of what's going on with that. But if Cowan's going to be an extra or he's not skating on a line, send him down. I get the whole experience thing and being around the guys, but he needs to get into games and get that experience. The other interesting thing, not pictured here at all, Ben Danford still with the team. I think that's crazy. So he's getting all the experience he can too, but that's another guy that needs to get sent down and back into games as well, unless he's going to play, which it doesn't look like he's going to with the main team. So a lot of interesting decisions that they still need to make, and crucial ones, honestly, for a lot of players and their development and some of the moves the team wants to make. But things are heating up, and we'll have an answer, I think, heading into tomorrow on where things fall and stand with a lot of players. So it should be fun. But a lot of these decisions, man, I love Berube, but a lot of them in terms of the bottom six, very odd looking team right now heading into Wednesday.
Yeah, let us know what your thoughts are. Obviously, the season starts tomorrow for some of the teams. For the Leafs, obviously on Wednesday, which means the Leafs do have to have their decision made basically by tomorrow, and Reimer's status, like you mentioned, is still up in the air. Hildeby at this point seems to be the backup for at least the start of the year, which I think we kind of alluded to anyway until Reimer gets ready, but that also gives Hildeby a chance to run away with it. They won't take him out if he's playing really well, so that's something to keep an eye out as well. And Nick Robertson, like a trade still hasn't happened yet. Maybe they're just going to rock with all these players. Two of these players they probably wanted to trade, especially Nick Robertson. Let's see how things go there. And Robertson's excited. He knows the drill. It doesn't stop here. And hopefully they can take care of business in their, season opener against the Montreal Canadiens in different fashion than last year when they got shut out 1-0. But that'll wrap it up. Let us know down below what your thoughts are. See you guys there.